Hey guys, so let's talk about the front end suspension. I wasn't planning on doing this video today, but I got the rig apart again, so I figured it's a good time to kind of show you guys all the parts of the front end. At this point I have about 7,000 miles on this front end with about 1,500 off-road miles. 1,200 of them were doing the Idaho BDR, so you know, back to back off-road miles. Sitting on the RCLT kit, RCV Axles, Radflow suspension, 37-inch tires with beadlocks, and that's kind of what we're going to go over today, and how I set it all up, which I think is a very unique combination, which I don't think anybody else is running. Alright, so let's just get right into it. Let's start with the RCLT kit because that is the biggest component of my front end. I did a video on this a couple of months ago, maybe 6-8 months ago, and I think all my opinions are still going to be the same. The kit is bomber. I am super stoked. If anything, I'm more stoked about it now that I've used it for 7,000 miles or so, which is a lot for an RCLT kit because it's a pretty new system, than ever before. I'm really happy. Everything just feels super solid and unbreakable. There are some small caveats though, and we'll discuss them as this video progresses. So the first thing I'll mention is when I drove from here to Colorado and back, about 2,000 miles total, it did not feel great. It was horrible. And up to 60 miles an hour I felt great. 60 to 80 I felt like I was gonna die. And I do have a Dana 60. I'm heavy. There's a lot of things. I don't have any sway bars, and I wasn't sure exactly what the issue was. It just felt bad, and it felt like my car wants to roll over every single highway turn going 60. That says go 65, and I go 65, and I feel like I want to roll. My caster was set to about 4.6 degrees, I believe, which is, everybody wants to go higher, right, with IFS. And then somebody told me to call this dude at Kaizen Off-Road, K-A-I-Z-E-N, I believe, off-road down in Orange County. Said he's a genius. I talked to him. He is a genius. I mean, this guy's a guru. He knew exactly the issues that I was talking about right away, and he solved all my issues on the phone. It was insane. Dropped my caster down to about 2.6 degree-ish, and this car drives amazing. I mean, on the highway going 75, 80 miles an hour, tire issues, so we'll discuss that later. But I can go 75 and 80 miles an hour, and it feels like I'm almost stock. I don't know how to explain it. It's just such a night and day difference. I feel like I could, let go and just drive with my knee if I need to, the whole highway drive. Probably shouldn't do that though. So, RCLT kit, super impressed, super happy with it once it's properly installed, which I discussed the installation in another video. The other thing about the RCLT kit is steering. I can turn and I can feel it. I have a better turning radius than I did at stock. That's at least how I feel. Other competitors, there's more competitors coming out now, right? But I feel like every single person I've talked to, and I'm going to a lot of shows now and talking to a lot of people, all the competitors, whether just putting a Tundra rack in or other kits, they're all having major issues. And now that I'm so confident with this RCLT kit, I've taken it apart a couple of times, I don't foresee any issues that other people are having, simply because this thing is so thought out. The geometry is there. I know it's overpriced, or I don't want to say overpriced. I know it's very expensive for what it is compared to the competition. However, you get way more. So I don't actually think it's overpriced. I think it's very fairly priced. That's that. No, that's not that. One more caveat. The RCLT kit is designed to be a rock crawler kit, and I acknowledge that. However, I want it to be both. I want it to be rock crawler, I want it to be desert bomber, I want it to be everything. More importantly, I want dual shocks in the front, simply because I'm running no sway bars. I want as much control of my shocks. With a coilover, I don't have the ability to put in like a triple bypass shock to get maximum adjustability. So I wanted a secondary shock, which I installed. The kit came with tabs. I don't think it does anymore. But the tabs only worked with like a 2.5 or a 2.0 smoothie. I have a 2.5 triple bypass. I had to cut into the arm. And I think I'm the only one that's done this so far with an RCLT kit. So I'm the only one probably properly running dual shocks with an RCLT kit, because where the tabs were, your tire, when it goes up at 37s especially, it's gonna hit the shock pretty early. So I cut really deep into the arm, replicated another company, basically, like I saw how they did it, and I just did it myself. It was scary, but I cut into it, and it works perfect. Now, I could run no problem. I have no limitations in up travel with a 37-inch tire, and you could do this with either definitely you could do this with a 2.5 triple bypass. Pretty sure you could do this with like a 3.0 as well, you know, so another caveat. So now let's talk about the axle shafts. That's not a pleasant conversation. There are so many problems with these axle shafts. So this is an RCV axle shaft, and yes, it's the $2,400 ultimate shaft. It doesn't have the orange boot on right now. And from my knowledge, based on people I talk to, based on various groups, including Instagram and forums, the boots on these shafts, the boots on these shafts suck, these orange boots. And they are supposedly developing, trying different materials. So the initial boots that came with my shafts, they lasted 100 miles, 200 miles. You'd think it was install error, but it's not. You could really talk to a bunch of people, and a lot of people are getting the same issues. And then then the next set I put on, I think they lasted, I don't know, 1,000 miles, whatever. They don't last. I feel like every 1,000 miles I'm rebuilding these shafts, to be honest with you. Then after I solved, for now at least, hopefully, I solved the outer shaft issue by putting on the black boots, which have lasted me about 5,000 miles so far, including the 1,200 off-road, and they seem solid for now, so I think that might have solved that issue. I'm still having other issues here. I will say that if you get these RCVs and you're trying to troubleshoot them, there's a lot of different information on how to possibly troubleshoot these. Tried, I don't know. But I'll tell you this much, like none of those things helped me other than going to a black boot. On my first, trip, the one that I went to Colorado and back, in Vegas, so I was just going through the night, Denver, straight home. I wanted to get straight home. And in Vegas, my shaft blows, I'm sorry. I get out and I feel like very, very bad shimmy. I get out, I look at the boot is torn completely. It got torn on the way to Vegas too, I repaired it. But, I'm sorry, on the way to Denver too, and I repaired it, but my other boot now is torn. And my ball bearings are shot, and I feel that they're shot. So I actually had to get a very expensive tow from Vegas home and called up RCV. They did not warranty those bearings. They said that I stretched this too much when I installed it, I don't know. But they didn't warranty the bearings. So at this point, I think I'm just telling you my personal experiences, right? Half of the boots that I get, and I've gotten like 5 or 6 of these at least, and they're not cheap, have been warranted. The other half have not been warranted. My bearings weren't warranted, so I'm substantially financially into this issue. Now I got back from my trip and I look, and specifically on this shaft, this inner boot I've never actually touched, and it's leaking grease. So I took it out to replace the factory installed clips because it was leaking grease, and add more grease in there. And when I did that, the whole thing just fell apart on me. There's a little C-clip in there that holds these two pieces together in essence, and it was bent out of shape. I took out the other shaft, same exact issue. I don't have time right now to even deal with the C-clips because I'm going to a show in a day and a half, so I just have to get these back in. So right now, once I install it, it'll work fine. But right now, if I could pull this apart by hand if I want to. But once it's installed, the nut is on, it'll hold totally fine, theoretically, but it's just constant issues with these shafts. I know that there are fixes possibly coming, people are promising fixes, whatever, but I don't have them. I'm like 3K into this, I'm not a happy camper. I talked to RCV tech support basically on the phone. I will tell you honestly, they are fantastic. They always try to help, they're super understanding, they're super knowledgeable, they give great advice. So I guess from that perspective, I'm happy with RCV. And even if they would warranty everything, which they don't, I just, in the end, in my mind, I ended up building this rig out to be bulletproof and to have very little maintenance and very little headaches. And other than the axle shafts, it is. I'm super stoked with this build, and I have a little bit of tuning to do, but in like 2-3 months, this thing is gonna be bulletproof completely. But if I gotta keep pulling these shafts out every 2,000 to 3,000 miles or whatever, this whole build is worthless to me. Therefore, I actually ordered CVJ axle shafts. Now, CVJ axles, I know Sherpa Motorsports runs them for the King of the Hammer races and all their races, but they are using basically factory Toyota outers with their own like inside section here. Versus this is all using like super high strength. So these are way stronger than CVJ. But my hunch is CVJ is gonna be problem free. And in my head, it's like, okay, if I break, I'll carry 3 CVJ axles, and if I break one every 2 years on a trail, that's better than having to pull these out every single time I go wheeling right now. Maybe a fix will come out, but for now, that's kind of where I am. So let's talk the shocks. I got Radflows, and why did I get Radflows? To be honest with you, I've never had Radflows before, but other companies that I was looking at that I was more familiar with, they all had insane wait times because I needed custom builds all around. So I decided to give Radflow a try. Their wait times were way less, and they're local. They're like 40 minutes away, so I figured, you know, that's easier. To date, it's been, I don't know, 7-8 months that I've been dealing with Radflow once in a while, every month or so. I mean, I can't say anything bad about them, can't say anything good about them. The quality is great. I could tell that the quality of the shock is great so far. But I only have a couple thousand miles on them right now, and I didn't fully tune my shocks yet to be able to give good advice. Everything I want, they build for me, they charge me very full price. So from a perspective of me wanting to place an order of a part, me getting that part fast and that part looking like it's perfectly built and super stout, they're great shocks. Use, I will let you know maybe in 6 months or a year after I tune them and beat them up for a while. Because I have yet, on a truck, like on a build like this, I have yet to have shocks that have lasted for a year, you know, without having to rebuild them. So we'll see. So let's talk straps now. I have 2 sets of straps on each side in the front on the lower control arms. Why? Because I'm so paranoid about a strap breaking and then that breaking my axle shaft and that causing a lot of problems off-road. So I wanted a backup. I've never dealt with straps before and learning a lot here. I have a lot of straps left over because different sizes, I needed various sizes for testing, honestly, to see which ones work perfect. Now, the other thing is, I don't have my broken one with me, but initially I installed these cheaper $20 ones, bolts, and they bend fairly easy. So I got the heavy duty ones, which are like 60 bucks or something, and they don't bend at all. But the problem that they have is they make a lot of noise, unless you install them perfectly. By perfect installation, meaning the spring is completely compressed. To make the spring completely compressed, you have to know exactly where your limit is and install your limiting straps based on that limit, which I did not do because I didn't know that was a thing. I figured an inch here or there wouldn't be a big deal because I just get a different strap up, but no, you got to be within like, I don't know, 2 millimeters. And if you're within 2 millimeters, you might make it so your bolt or your strap is silent, possibly. But from my experience, even where I have it fairly compressed, these things are noisy. So I'm trying another experiment right now where I have no spring and just bolts. That prevents side-to-side movement of these things. And I've been told that that's not good. I have yet to see a reason why that's not good. So I'll report if that's not good later. But right now, this is how I'm running it. It seems to solve my clanking issues. And that's where we're at with straps. As you can see, I'm learning a lot. I will tell you one more thing about the RCVs. I am a professional axle builder at this point, and I never wanted to be. And at this point, I've torn apart my RCVs and reinstalled those bearings so many times, it's insane. I could do it blindfolded. and that is not a skill I signed up for. Bump stops. I have Radflow bump stops in the front, have them in the rear too, and there's a plus and minus to these bump stops. The plus is I have unlimited adjustability. I went out, tested the rig, I jumped it a little bit. I realized I am touching a little bit somewhere where I didn't want to touch, and I was just able to, on the trail basically, adjust this by a millimeter or two down, solve my issue. I have unlimited adjustability with these bump stops. They take up a lot of real estate in a place where there's very little real estate with dual shocks already. So, and dual straps. If I would do it over again, would I install these? I don't know. I mean, if I had the time, meaning like more time than I have, months, an extra month or so or two just to play with my bump stops, I probably would not install these, and I'd try to stick with like a stock bump stop configuration just to save space on real estate. However, because I don't usually have the time, and I need to do these adjustments on the fly, yeah, I probably would have done these again. And then the last part of this kit is going to be this for you, or at least it should be, because you're going to have to figure out a way to keep installing and reinstalling your shocks. Number one. Number two is just adjustability. If you're going this deep, you got to get into adjustability, or you go to a really good shock tuner. I bought this kit, power tank, and this is to refill my shocks. It is fantastic. I don't know how I lived without this for 10 years. This gives me so much more options and so much easier to install and uninstall this thing. I could take apart my axle shafts, take them out, including taking my tire off. Get to the point where I'm taking my tire off and then I pull the axle shaft out. I could do all that now in like 15 minutes because I'm pulling my shafts out a lot. But that is also because I have this and I don't have to fight the pressure of the secondary shock with my lower control arm. So that's some advice for you. So the next thing is brakes. You're gonna ask why I don't have a big brake kit. Because I can't justify the cost of it yet. I'm super heavy, insanely heavy. I mean, when I do my rear end walk around, you'll see. And I'm gonna add more weight to this rig, about 200 pounds more probably, when it's all said and done. And then I'll go weigh it. But I bet you I'm somewhere between 7,200 to 8,000 pounds, which is insane. And I drove with that weight for 7,000 miles, 1,200 off-road miles. We went on a lot of highway passes. I drove through Colorado to Denver, I believe. On those highway passes, I don't really feel like, I mean, I feel my brakes are weaker, but I'm able to drive it with my transmission controls, and I don't really feel a need for the cost for a bigger brake kit right now. I know a lot of people might say that's stupid. That's just me. I'm not sure if a bigger brake kit even gives you more stopping power versus it gives you more dissipation of heat, which means the brakes will last longer. Meaning that if I could just control my braking with my transmission too, I don't really have the worry that my brakes are gonna overheat. So that's kind of where I am with brakes right now. And then the last thing, the questions that's really gonna be is like, would I do this over again? Do I recommend this to people? And so on. So would I do this over again? In a heartbeat. Now that I know what I know, I'm super happy. Once I resolve the axle shaft issue, I'll be done and I'll be ecstatic. Would I, so yeah, I don't know anything that's better. And people compare this to portal axles. I don't personally. Portal axles are awesome. They're fantastic. They have their own application. But they don't resolve my biggest issue, and the reason why I got this kit is the steering rack issue. I wanted a Land Cruiser 200 rack or a bigger, beefier rack that has perfect geometry, and I don't think anybody has properly resolved that other than Marlin Crawler. That's number one. So the other reason for portal axles, I just feel like with all the little gears in there that are playing with your stuff, I want other people to go out and test that and not break gears for a year or two before I fully trust them as well. But more about the steering rack. I mean, if I'm not upgrading the steering rack and I'm putting portal axles on with 37s, to me that sounds insane. And then would I recommend this to people? That's tough. If you are into building trucks, or if you're into, wheeling or whatever, anything like that, yes, in a heartbeat, I recommend the RCLT Kit all day long. But a lot of people that ask me that are the ones that, you know, are debating this versus a 3-inch King lift kit. For those people, I'm gonna probably say maybe not, because with a 3-inch King lift kit, you still pretty much have a fairly stock vehicle, just a little bit taller. With this, you're getting into heavily modified territory where you need to, you do this, you're gonna wanna go to bigger tires, you're probably gonna wanna possibly upgrade your rear axle. I mean, you're getting into a really different game. And this is something that is not gonna be plug and play. Honestly, the RCLT kit is actually plug and play. I think that everything that's RCLT kit related components, I installed it and I'm done. I haven't had to deal with those at all. It's more the other things, right? The axle shafts, which I haven't solved yet. Hopefully I'll give you an update now in a couple of months or a year or so. It's the shocks, different, you know, you're in a different now kind of design with shocks, and you have a long travel, so it's all, the road manner is a little different. Everything's going to be a little bit different. So like I said, a 3.0 kit for a couple $1,000 is gonna, for the person that's debating those two, probably should go with the 3.0 kit. Person that wants to get into more heavy duty stuff, carry more weight, something super reliable in the end after you spend months tuning it, not because of the RCLT, but because of the shock, because of everything else involved in a build like this. This is the way to go. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. It's very hard. I think it's I think you need to get into this knowing what you're getting into. You're getting into a big build most likely at this point, right? Once you start chopping up your cross members. Cool. Thank you.